Hey people, welcome to my research talk. I am Aditi, a first-year research student from Chadri Charan Singh State University, Meerut, India. Today I will be focusing upon satire, humor, and establishment of identities and a social study of make like no. I want to acknowledge the questions like what is humor, what is wit, what is satire, what are the theories of humor? Can satire establish the identity of whom it is made upon? Can satire establish the identity of the person who made it? I certainly want to look McFleckno in the light of satire and humor. I was Dryden a humbug while defining or deciding the periphery or the boundaries of satire, humor, and wit for himself and for others. His McFleckno had established the identity of author or targeted personality. I would be starting with very first thing, humor itself. So humor is a literary tool that makes the reader laugh, or at least aims to make them smile at least. So it is to relieve the tension they are holding from so long, or to change their mood, or to bring them from their grumpy or sadness mood to something called happiness, and to evoke the emotion of happiness into them. It relieves the tension of the person. But humor has many types, which like there are so many certain types of humor which can evoke this particular emotion of happiness in a person. Let's see a few of them. The very first, of course there are many, but I have taken a very selective one. The very first one is with hyperbole, sarcasm, irony, fun, slapstick, or the surprise. When we talk about wit, it is certainly and the most highest form of the humor, or the most widely used along with sarcasm. Hyperbole is something called exaggeration, where the humor arises while exaggerating the thing to a certain extent, then people starts laughing, knowing that this couldn't happen, this is not true. Mostly it is used in the cartoons or the films of the children or in the caricature. So a small thing is stretched to the extent that it creates the laughter. Sarcasm comes, it is the lowest of all forms of humor. To my surprise, to everyone's surprise, it is the most widely used sort of humor, the most easiest one. Irony is again a play of word where humor arises from a situation where a person says something but means something very different, or very it's rare. Pun is a very intellectual sort of humor, I would like to say, because in the pun, humor arises from the play of words. People say something with juggling of the words or by misplacing the words in sentences in order to I'm sorry, in order to evoke humor or turn the situation into the humorous one. Slapstick is more a visual or a physical sort of humor, wherein the humor arises from a physical situation. Suppose a person is standing and was sitting on the chair, he falls off. So everyone starts laughing. So this could be an example of slapstick, or someone throws the water on the face of someone, or like that happens in a physical scenario where we can visually witness it. So this is the example of slapstick. Surprise is the thing, it's a type of humor wherein humor or laughter arises from a shocking situation. Suppose you're in a very serious mood or something happens and you realize that that is not something you were expecting for. This is totally different. Suppose uh, you were waiting for your boss to scold you, or you were waiting for your professor to scold you, but he didn't, or he says something which might surprise you and start laughing. Was this a thing I was worrying for a whole lot of time? So this emotion when brings this fragment one brings emotion, when brings happiness, or the emotion of happiness, this is the surprise, this is the element of surprise and humor. Let's talk about these type of humor in detail. And the very first I would like to consider will be the wit. So wit, if I say, it is a very subjective kind of humor. A person might take a minute to understand a witty remark or a witty comment, while the other person might get it within a fraction of second, or even he don't even take those fraction of second to understand it. So it becomes very subjective. Some people like it, some people takes time to understand it, and some people don't take any time to understand it. Hallmark of the wit is that it often takes a second to understand what is being said. Witty remark goes away or above from people's head, and then they get it, and then they try to understand it. It hits their head, and then they start laughing. So this is what wit does to the people. If we talk about the next form of humor, that is satire, which I've already mentioned that it is also a genre and it is a literary device, which is considered as lowest of all forms of humor, but it is widely used. So satire is basically what Molly Ivins says. I would like to quote it here. It's a weapon of powerless against the powerful. People make commentary on the virtues, follies, vices, and evil of the society or a particular powerful person, or sort of enemy or any side of competitor it is. They will make a folly of them. They will make a comment on them in the form of satire. Talking about satire, it has three subdivisions. One is Horatian satire, which is humorous in nature. It is a social remark, of course, to amend something or to make the reformation in the society. And it's a fun sort of humor. It's a fun sort of remark. So it brings within the light humor. The juvenile satire is more evil in nature. The purpose is to confront injustice. It's a very harsh remark. Manichean satire is a mixture of both. It could be 50% both, 40, 60, or something like that, 80-20. It's basically a mixture of both Horatian and juvenile satire. If we talk about the next form, that is, if we talk about the theories of humor, because since we have seen a few theories of humor, I'm really sorry for this. There are basically three theories of humor. Of course, there are so many, but the most prominent are the three: the superiority, the relief, and incongruity theory. When I talk about the superiority theory, it takes me back to my grad school, where I used to wonder why everyone hates the comedy, why all those Greek ancient philosopher has said that tragedy is greatest of all the times and comedy is the lowest of all the times. Well, then the superiority theory answers it, because according to superiority theory, laughter emerges while making someone fun of someone or while degrading someone. Degrading in the sense you are degrading the person by showing your superiority to the person. You're saying that you are superior, the person is inferior, and that is evoking the laughter. For example, the husband-wife jokes or girls-boy jokes, or sort of joke wherein one person is ridiculed and other person is shown as a superior one, and the laughter arises from it. When we talk about the relief theory, then what comes into my mind is when a person is suffering from a lot of psychological tension or a lot of sad emotion, and then he gets a sort of psychological relief, even in a very lightest of the situations, the person will start laughing. The person will feel very relieved, and he will be very happy towards that. So this is the psychological relief theory, which is far, far better than the theory of superiority and others. Incongruity theory is something which means something like, it is a kind of play of word again, wherein person comes or makes a statement out of the shock. So I had this example of incongruity theory. So I would like to quote: when a person says that he likes to walk alone, and Australians walk to the person and says, do you like to walk alone? So do I. Let's walk together. So this is a kind of a remark that incongruity theory makes, wherein something comes totally different or totally out of the shock. Well, moving to the next part of our slide, let's talk about the satire and establishment of the identities. The question is, can satire establish the identity of anyone? Well, satire is an intellectual violence which leaves the mark. And when it leaves the mark, it definitely sets an identity identity. It sets an image, and to some extent, satire sometimes sets in trend. It happened in the case of the Dryden. First of all, people were using satire to say something or to tell something to the society, to voice against the evils. But after the coming of the Dryden, after the use of satire by Dryden, people started doing it, and that's was kind of set a trend. But in the process, what the other person on whom the satire is made upon can can go to the authority, can file a suit, or at that time it was called the libels, and can go against them legally. And that would definitely set an identity for the person who even made the satire. Now let us quickly look the Mecflecno in the light of satire and humor. Mecflecno basically means Flecno was a king. He was a king of Ireland. Mecflecno is associated with ignorance. And Dryden has used very satirical remark. Of course, he used to claim that he hates humor. I'm very sorry. That he hates humor, and he is someone who is in favor of wit. But we can definitely see through this poem that he has used satire throughout the poem. Moreover, he has used the superiority theory to make Shadwell feel inferior to him. If we see in the poem, he has used SH. So as to refer Shadwell to save himself from any allegations from the court, from any legal suit, but he has used SH to recommend Shadwell as in shit as well. Believe that with this Shadwell, some people don't. It is totally dependent upon them. But then when we see the political conditions at that time, he was indeed making a remark on Shadwell, and he had called him. He had called the king of ignorance, that the king was ruling from a long time. And how can a king who is so ignorant can rule from a long time? Because he was surrounded by fools. So see, sort of remarks he's making. Now, when we see that, was he making the remark on the king? Then no, he wasn't making the remark on the present king, because he was a regressive one, and Shadwell was someone who was against the king. So he was making the remarks on someone who was against the king, who was a progressive person. We can never say that the Dryden in this particular poem was talking against the king. He tells that Shadwell was associated with dullness, and he was mature in dullness. If we see in line said, he had this mature dullness from his tender years. If we call someone mature, that's a very good thing to say someone mature. But in this case, he was calling him mature in dullness. A not very good remark. He might have used wit here, but most of the poem is repleted with satire. He wanted to set an identity for Shadwell, but herein he has been a humbug. He has been very partial for choosing this exact periphery of satire for him and for Shadwell. And if we see the last, the greater than his father be his throne. So the father wanted his son to be someone greater than him. He was already a king of dullness who had ruled for so many years. Still, he wanted his son to be more greater than him, means more stupid than him. When we see about the Dryden's effort, his attitude towards throughout the poem towards the Shadwell or whosoever concerned person was indeed very partial. And Shadwell was attacked, as I've previously talked, that because he was a progressive, Dryden was someone who was at the side of the king. He was a regressive. He wants the things to be in a balance, but Shadwell was someone who was always used to, revolt against the king and against all the evils of the society. That's why Dryden took this way. And the poem did establishes the identity, but it is for Shadwell, but for Dryden, because if we deep dive into the poem, we see that how Dryden had been a very partial person. The scope of the further research could be that I have just tried to look into the wit and satirical element, but a person can make a separate study and can really identify how many elements of wit or how many exactly elements of satire had been used into the study, and then we could clearly make a difference among them and can make the study further interesting. I would like to thank you all for being with me all the time. So here I rest my presentation. Thanks a lot.